Welcome, listeners, to another episode of the Prosperity Podcast. My name is Jordan Pate-Garrett, a licensed mental health counselor and the Youth Services Coordinator with the Miami-Dade Economic Advocacy Trust. Today, I'm here with D'Bria Bradshaw. D'Bria, tell us about yourself.
Good morning, everyone.
Yeah.
My name is D'Bria Bradshaw, as Jordan said. I am an attorney by trade, and I have the pleasure of serving as the Florida State Lead for Fair Election Center's Campus Vote Project.
But you're also one of our adult volunteers with the Teen Court program, and we love you so much. How long have you been an adult volunteer with us?
I believe I started during COVID, so it's either 2020 or 2021 that I started with the program and have been able to serve as a volunteer judge and really love just helping mentor the next generation of young people that want to have a space in advocacy, whether that be becoming an attorney or working in the court system or just learning about how the criminal justice system works. I really enjoy having a space in that.
And you said you're Florida State Lead?
Yes.
What does that mean, and what do you do?
So Campus Vote Project is a program of Fair Election Center, and with that, we work with colleges and universities throughout the country. So me being the Florida State Lead, I work with institutions throughout the state of Florida to institutionalize student voting. So what that means is integrating civic engagement into curriculum, programming, something as simple as Welcome Back Week, making sure there's a civic engagement component to make sure students are not only registered to vote, but know what's happening during that semester that they're coming into the school.
So I've been looking at some studies, and when it comes to like civic engagement with youth and with kind of like the emerging adult population, it would seem as though they're not interested in doing it. However, the research that I'm looking at, they actually are interested in voting, in their rights. How do we kind of shift that narrative to let other individuals know that youth are interested in getting out there and engaging with, having a role in civic engagement? How do we get them to notice that? How do we switch that narrative?
So that's a huge misconception across the board, is that youth are just not engaged. They don't care. They lack apathy when it comes to civic engagement and voting and politics. The youth of this generation, so Gen Z, are voting at the same rates that previous youth groups have.
Oh, wow.
So baby boomers, Gen Xers, millennials, I think they're even outvoting millennials at this point in their first midterm election.
And that's crazy because Gen Z gets so much like slack about being like voting, the social media generation.
It's literally the same rate. It's the same percentages. If you look at data that they are voting at. So the youth get a lot of slack that they don't care about what's going on, but their voting rates are similar to generations before them.
So what spaces, informally and formally, what spaces are giving them that seat at the table? And what spaces have kind of fallen short in not giving them a seat at the table?
So I think when we look at organizations that are like grandfathered into civic engagement, so when we think about the NAACPs, the League of Women Voters, they have youth spaces for young people to take part in. I think where a lot of people are not too engaged with now are all the barriers that come into place now. Parents don't really have time to take their kids to extracurricular activities. There's not funding to get buses to take kids to different activities after school or during the programs, or organizations don't have money to facilitate certain workshops and programming to educate students. And then sometimes it's just legislation. Organizations will get sued or get shut down because they're educating young people on certain topics because of the climate of the state and the country that we live in now. So it's a lot of different reasons on why people aren't as engaged as maybe our generation, being millennials or Gen X or baby boomers. But I do think it is barriers that are put in place now when people are thinking about, if I work an extra hour at work to pay for groceries as opposed to taking my kid to this NAACP meeting at 6 o'clock, groceries is always going to outweigh exposure, unfortunately. Yeah. And that's why it's so important to have community. So whatever the parents maybe can't do, maybe a grandparent or an aunt or a family friend can step in.
And do you think because of these barriers, they kind of have like this idea that advocacy or civic engagement is not for them?
I think with barriers comes that lack of exposure that I talked about.
Yeah.
And when you don't necessarily see yourself in certain spaces, like we don't have a lot of younger people that may be in elected official positions, you don't really see yourself in that.
Right.
Or if you don't hear about people's backgrounds and you only hear about what they're doing right now or the pathways that they've taken now, and they're not really talking about how they grew up in certain communities or had or didn't have certain experiences, and they had to go out and find certain mentors and guidance to get to where they are now. When you're not telling a complete story, it's hard for young people to see themselves in a certain professional
position. And I was going to ask, because you also said we don't have many like young people in those elected official positions. You mentor for teen court, right? Even though you're a lawyer by trade, you still take on mentees to support them so that they can see individuals that look like them and kind of look their age, close to their age, in spaces that they could be in. What does it mean to maybe you're not a younger elected official, but what does it mean to mentor in this role, essentially?
I think mentoring altogether is important to just pour back into this next generation coming up. They are not just bystanders, they're stakeholders in what's happening now.
Yeah.
They cannot vote right now, but they are stakeholders in the decisions that are being made right now. They will either benefit or not benefit from legislation being passed right now. So I think it's important for any professional to reach back. It's not just going to be me walking through these doors. Right. I'm going to make sure I'm reaching back and pulling along other people that are younger people, that are interested in either the role that I've taken, or I can connect them to someone that I know that has similar paths and wants to mentor that person as well.
And you did mention them being stakeholders. We know like a lot of youth from marginalized communities, so like foster youth. We work with juvenile involved youth, even the LGBTQIA youth. How important is it to make these spaces inclusive and not just like performatively? So like we have, we have a day where we recognize them. We offer 50% off. Like how do we make these spaces genuinely inclusive so that they feel supported, so that they feel their voices can be heard, and they feel like they have a seat. They can make a change in their community.
I think one of the first things we need to do is make sure that we're not taking a monolithic approach.
Oh yeah.
Everybody's experience is different, and it's not okay to just assume all Black youth experience the same things. Right. We don't all come from the same socioeconomic backgrounds. We don't all come from the same two-parent or single-parent household. Everything looks different. So I think that's the first thing going in. We need to make sure that everyone understands that everybody has different experiences. I think secondly, having young people be a part of the planning process instead of the feedback process is important. I think a lot of times people just think, just give them a survey. We're going to put on this programming. Just give them a survey and they can tell us what they think about how the programming went. That's not okay. Let them be a part of the planning process.
So not just consultants, but an active member of what's going on.
Absolutely. Yeah. Having an e-board should not only consume older adults. Allow young people to come in and provide their expertise, because this generation is the most advanced when it comes to technology.
Yes.
So they are navigating spaces that baby boomers, Gen Xers will never know about. The way that the workforce is changing. It's important to have young people have their voices heard because they know what's going on.
Yeah. When people are like, I've been in your shoes before. You've never been here, Mom. You've never been here, Grandpa. It's totally different. Totally different.
It is completely
There's so much that they're downloading now and have access to, so it makes it completely different. Even visuals, like we're seeing things live. We're seeing things in real time action. So it's kind of scary too.
Yes, and digital literacy is extremely important.
Yes.
So the fact that they're consuming so much information at paces that our generation and generations before are not familiar with, it's important that digital literacy is being intertwined into curriculums now.
Yes. I was going to ask for listeners who aren't tracking Capitol Hill, any legislation there, what are some of the things that we should be looking for?
So when it comes to democracy, I always tell people the John Lewis Voting Rights Act is important, as well as the Freedom to Vote Act. Those two pieces of legislation go hand in hand very well. And with the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, it literally just reinstates the original 1965 Voting Rights Act. We know during the past decade with the Shelby v. Holder case, the recent legislation that just the recent ruling that just came down from the Supreme Court with the Louisiana case, is literally chipping away at the depth of what the Voting Rights Act was implemented to do, which is to not disenfranchise Black voters.
You said the Louisiana Act.
The Louisiana v. Calais case that just came down to the Supreme Court, which basically Louisiana has a population of Black voters, and they tried to basically increase a political seat, and the case went all the way to the Supreme Court. Basically, the Supreme Court came back and said that they cannot do that just based off the fact that there's this demographic of Black voters here and you're trying to create another seat to represent them.
Okay.
So it's a lot that's going on, and that's why I say the John Lewis Voting Rights Act is very instrumental to reinstating all of the provisions from the original Voting Rights Act. And then the Freedom to Vote Act is, chef's kiss, is same-day voter registration, is allowing people to vote by mail across the board, because that's not a thing in every state. We have that here in Florida, but in other states, they don't have vote by mail. They don't have absentee voting.
My goodness.
Some states, you have to give a reason to why you can't go physically vote in person. So it allows that across all of the states. It's just really, like I said, the two pieces of legislation paired together just expands democracy at the rate it should be as we're in 2026.
Right.
There should be no barriers to reasons why people can't vote and can't register to vote now.
And going back to youth, so I'm also seeing mental health being a key legislative kind of like trigger right now. And I was looking at the Early Minds Act. What is that doing to support what youth are saying they need, what we're seeing that they need, and where do you think it's falling short at?
It's a starting point. So the Early Minds Act grants state government the basis of issuing 5% of their budget, their mental health services budget, to early intervention,
right,
which is extremely important. We know that across the board with everything. Early intervention helps in so many different cases. So it's allowing youth to get the help that they need early on, whether that be therapy in schools, whether that be lowering costs for parents to receive therapy services. It is allowing state governments to issue up to 5% of their budget for mental health services with early intervention. I do think it's falling short because that's not enough.
Yeah.
As we've seen, being a part of a generation that has experienced COVID and the shutdown and what that looks like with generations coming behind us, a lot of young people are experiencing depression and anxiety at rates that are by far larger than probably what our generation experienced or generations before. But we also know more now too.
Yes.
We're far more educated than we were in generations in the past. So I think just helping them navigate society now is important. So 5% is good, but maybe 25%.
Because we need to close the gap.
Yes.
I think what I saw, it takes 11 years essentially for an individual to receive some type of services to support a mental health condition that they've experienced during childhood.
Oh, wow.
That's a huge gap.
Yes.
So 5% is nice, but yeah, like you said, 25%, 30%, something to at least support prevention services, right? And I'm a huge advocate of prevention.
Yes.
Prevention before intervention, because it's two different things, right? Yeah. What else are we looking at? So if you had a call to action for a young person listening right now, so I want to do something, or a parent who says, I want to give my child something to take away from, or something to believe in, something to invest in, what would you tell them? What would you give them?
I think if a young person right now just wants to get involved in any space, start at school.
Okay.
The reason I say start at school is because we all go through the same educational structure of having to go to school from kindergarten to 12th grade.
Yeah.
Everybody's not going to like their schools, from the lunch to curriculum. The easiest thing a kid can do to advocate for themselves is to write down things that they're not happy about,
Mhm.
but also write down things that they are happy about at their school. I really like the way that my history teacher teaches certain things. I really like the way that we feel safe at school with the security that's there. I don't necessarily think we have the healthiest lunch options. So when you go in and you're talking to principals, assistant principals, PTA members, you're providing them with, the pros and the cons of their experiences being there. Another way for kids to start their advocacy training is maybe in churches or community groups, like I mentioned before. Community groups that have youth liaison, like auxiliary groups.
Yeah.
Make sure that they get involved in those. Volunteering in the community, going to the library and reading. Like, the way that you build civic engagement and the way that it translates to lifelong civic engagement is as early as preteens volunteering in their community or speaking up and being a part of SGAs within their school. So I think that's the best way.
And I think you said something important about writing down things that they are happy with and that they aren't happy with. Most times individuals will always talk about the negatives, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you teach our kids in teen court as well how to build a case.
Yes.
And building a case is showing both the positives and the negatives to support your argument, because you have to draw people in somehow, right?
Yes.
And they don't want to hear just, all the bad.
Absolutely.
Right?
And it's the same way when you're going to sit down with elected officials.
Right.
You have to be able to politic in a way of, okay, I'm happy about the things you've done with this.
Yes.
And these are ways that we can improve these other areas too. And be solution focused. Yes. Don't just come in with a list of issues. Come in with, you may not have all the answers, but some answers to help out.
At least a general plan of what can happen. I like that. Okay. So I see what you're doing in my community. This is what I like. This is what I don't like. Mm-hmm. Or my school or whatever space I might be in. And this is what I think could change.
Absolutely.
Okay. D'Bria, thank you so much for your time today. Is there anything else you would like to tell our community members?
We do have elections this year. We have midterm elections coming up. The primaries are in August. Election day is August 18th. And then we have our general election coming up in November. So just make sure you are registered to vote and sign up for your vote by mail ballot. And make sure that your voices are heard in all elections. Every year, every vote. That's one of the slogans at Fair Election Center.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.